Hello, everybody, and a very good morning. My name's Don Arleth, and you're watching World News here on TVP World. After taking armed action in Venezuela, U.S. President Donald Trump and his team have been discussing a range of options to acquire Greenland. A purchase or the use of U.S. forces haven't been ruled out. The White House said in a statement that Trump sees acquiring Greenland as a national security priority, necessary to deter adversaries in the Arctic region. According to the statement, the president and his team have been discussing a range of options, noting that the use of the U.S. military is a possibility for America's commander-in-chief. The Arctic island is part of the Kingdom of Denmark and therefore part of NATO, while the prospect of the U.S. attacking a fellow alliance member would have seemed implausible in the past. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said on Monday that Trump should be taken seriously when he says that he wants Greenland. Danish and Greenlandic officials have requested a meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio to address misconceptions about Russian and Chinese activity in the Nuuk Fjord and U.S. intentions for the Danish territory.
I have had conversations with my Greenlandic colleagues over the last few days, and we have agreed that it seems that the time has come for us to reach out for a meeting with our American counterpart, the U.S. Secretary of State. So we have requested that yesterday. It has not been organized yet, and I cannot say when it will take place. So the image that is being drawn, that there are Russian and Chinese ships right inside Nuuk Fjord and massive Chinese investments, it is not a totally correct picture, to say it very, very diplomatically. And therefore we think it makes sense to try and have a meeting with our American counterpart in order to solve some of the misunderstandings that may be there.
Russia has deployed naval escorts for an oil tanker historically linked to Venezuelan crude as U.S. forces pursue it across the Atlantic Ocean. Tensions are growing over oil sanctions and involvement of U.S. adversaries in the Western Hemisphere. This comes as the Trump administration attempts to take control of Venezuela's oil industry. According to CBS News, the vessel has historically transported Venezuelan crude oil. It is not currently carrying any cargo. The BBC reports that the tanker was thought to be between Scotland and Iceland on Tuesday. Its approach to Europe has coincided with the arrival of around 10 U.S. military transport aircraft as well as helicopters. The BBC has said that Russia claims it is monitoring the situation around the ship. The U.S. president announced that Venezuela's interim authorities will transfer 30 to 50 million barrels of sanctioned oil to the United States at market price, with proceeds to benefit both countries and managed by Donald Trump.
I am pleased to announce that the interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over between 30 and 50 million barrels of high-quality sanctioned oil to the United States of America. This oil will be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me as President of the United States of America to ensure it is used to benefit the people of Venezuela and the United States. I have asked Energy Secretary Chris Wright to execute this plan immediately. It will be taken by storage ships and brought directly to unloading docks in the United States.
Germany has made it clear that its support for Ukraine, both political and military, remains steadfast, with no options ruled out for the future. If and when the guns fall silent, Berlin is ready to take on a leading role in safeguarding Ukraine's security and ensuring stability across Europe. France and the United Kingdom also remain firm in their support for Ukraine.
We signed a declaration of intent on the deployment of forces to Ukraine in the event of a peace deal. This is a vital part of our iron-cast commitment to stand with Ukraine for the long term. It paves the way for the legal framework under which British, French and partner forces could operate on Ukrainian soil, securing Ukraine's skies and seas, and regenerating Ukraine's armed forces for the future.
Germany will continue to support Ukraine politically and militarily. That could potentially mean that after a ceasefire, we would have a presence in a neighboring NATO area. As for the type and scope of the contribution, that is to be decided by the German parliament and the government. But I would say that for the moment, for me and for the German government, nothing is excluded. As for now, Germany is Kiev's strongest supporter, and after a ceasefire, Germany will accept the responsibility for Ukraine's security and for the continent as a whole. We are all aware that peace agreements signed by Russia in the last 15 years have all been broken, whether it be with Georgia, Ukraine, or Moldova. That's why the Paris Declaration includes these security guarantees and notes the convergence between the coalition of the willing, Ukraine, and the U.S. And in the short term, we will continue to provide our support for Ukraine and help them cope with all the challenges they currently face in terms of protecting its airspace, protecting civilians, who are continually targeted, even as we speak, by the Russians. And we will also continue our efforts on sanctions to limit and reduce Russia's war efforts. There are substantial coalition documents, not just words, but concrete sentiments. A joint declaration of all coalition countries, as well as a trilateral declaration between Ukraine, United Kingdom, and France. These documents exist, and they signal how seriously both Europe and the entire coalition are prepared to work for real security. Through these documents, we are further strengthening the legal work in countries with parliaments so that when diplomacy succeeds in bringing the war to an end, we will be fully ready to deploy the forces of the coalition of the willing.
Speaking on the Paris Declaration, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk reaffirmed European and American commitments to security guarantees for Ukraine. He said that these already exist in the form of draft documents, which are more than a work in progress.
We adopted the Paris Declaration, which confirms European and American commitment to providing Ukraine with these guarantees, with an appropriate presence tailored to the needs of the parties and of the European and American states involved. This is accompanied by arrangements that arrive in the form of draft documents outlining what specific actions should be taken and what the participation of individual states should look like. As I said, these materials are still being worked on, but concrete versions have already emerged. There is no expectation from our partners when it comes to the presence of Polish troops in Ukraine under any circumstance, and we have discussed this many times. However, Poland's participation in securing the actions of all countries willing to support Ukraine will be significant. And Poland, I will commit a slight indiscretion here, but Poland will be a leading country when it comes to these logistical and organizational matters.
The Czech ammunition coalition, but in name only. Czech Prime Minister Andrej Babiš has said that although he is against the country paying for the Ammunition for Ukraine initiative, he is open to other countries doing so.
The ammunition initiative is what we will be discussing tomorrow at the State Security Council, so what we said applies, at least for me, even though I spoke with coalition partners today before the meeting, that we will not be providing money from the Czech budget. But I think we can move forward with the ammunition initiative under the condition that other states finance it.
Speaking to TVP World, former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine William B. Taylor described Tuesday's declaration signed by the UK, France, and Ukraine in Paris as a major step towards securing peace.
It's a strong statement of intent. These European nations have gotten together and have committed themselves to a serious effort to provide security for Ukraine after a ceasefire. And these commitments by the British and the French to actually put troops on the ground in Ukraine is a big statement, is a big step. Other nations, I understand, are also considering doing that as well. There's some Baltic states that are willing to put troops on the ground as well. So this is a major step towards security for Ukraine after a ceasefire.
More than 25,000 households are still without electricity in Berlin after an arson attack damaged power cables in the southwest of the city. Full restoration of services is expected to take until Thursday, with cold weather slowing down repairs. The authorities are providing free accommodation to affected residents who are now staying in various hotels across the German capital. 17 local schools are closed, and the city is providing free childcare. Around 45,000 households and over 2,000 businesses have been affected by the attack. A left-wing extremist group known as Vulkangruppe has taken responsibility in the public letter for deliberately setting fire to the cable bridge in Berlin Lichterfelde near critical energy infrastructure. A market boost for Polish parcel service InPost has seen its share price skyrocket after news of a multi-billion euro takeover bid. Sonia Garabishchan has this report.
2026 is off to a good start for InPost. The parcel locker company founded by Poland Rafał Brzoska had its shares jump from the previous closes 11.59 to over 14.80 euro on Tuesday. By the afternoon, there was a rise of roughly 28% in share prices caused by the following news.
InPost announces that it has received an indicative proposal regarding a potential acquisition of all shares in the company.
Details regarding the buyer and the price have not been revealed. The company added that there is no assurance the offer will lead to a transaction, but in the view of some analysts, the very prospect of interest is enough to entice the market.
The increase in share prices is due to hopes for an attractive proposal in the future, rather than a confirmed decision. Whether higher share prices are maintained will depend on whether specific, binding announcements are made by the company.
InPost announced a special committee of supervisory and management board members has been formed and will consider all aspects of a potential transaction. At present, InPost's market capitalization amounts to 5.79 billion euro, and its biggest shareholders include the PPF Group, a Czech investment giant, Rafał Brzoska's A&R Investments Limited, and the Advent International Corporation, with the latter possibly spearheading the multi-billion euro takeover bid, according to Sky News. Advent declined to comment on the speculation for TVP World, but it is suspected that the private equity firm is part of a consortium aiming to acquire InPost. For TVP World, I'm Sonia Garabishchan.
Slovenian President Nataša Pirc-Musar signed a writ of election on Tuesday, setting March 22nd as the date for the upcoming general election. As of January 12th, voters will be able to submit their signatures of support for candidate lists.
Slovenian President Nataša Pirc-Musar has officially called for parliamentary elections on March 22nd, setting the stage for a high-stakes battle in the EU member state. Describing the decree as a vital moment for democracy, Pirc-Musar urged citizens to use their vote to determine the nation's future direction. The race will see Prime Minister Robert Golob's center-left coalition fight to maintain power after leading the country since 2022. However, they face a formidable challenge from the opposition led by populist former Premier Janez Janša in what is expected to be a tightly contested vote.
A powerful winter storm has hit Europe, causing heavy snowfall and even some flooding. As Parisians celebrate the snow and roads became impassable in Bosnia and Serbia, Kosovo has suffered heavy floods.
In Paris, people have faced the snow with sleds and smiling faces.
We were in a pub, or not a pub, in a cafe just up the road, and they said that it snows only twice every year, so how lucky can we be?
In Serbia, so much snow has fallen that the Ministry of Internal Affairs has issued an urgent plea for citizens to stay off the roads. The storm in Serbia took a tragic turn in the Voždovac district, where emergency services discovered the body of an elderly woman lying in the snow. In Bosnia, utility teams are working to restore power to over 4,000 households and 50 villages that remain cut off from the electrical grid. Kosovo has been dealing with a very different problem: mass floods.
I apologize to the citizens because we have been forced to cut off electrical power due to the risk that if water reaches this electric station, it will endanger the entire power station for an extended period. I thank the citizens, the firefighters and other officials who are carrying out the work and helping citizens.
While the flooding is expected to stop, forecasts suggest the cold snap will continue and the snow won't be melting anytime soon.
And with those images, we conclude this edition of World News. Thanks for joining us and stay with us for more here on TVP World.